Welcome to the Fence and Deck Mastery Podcast, where we discuss cutting-edge techniques, industry trends, and business insights to take your fence or deck company to the next level and dominate your competition. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fence and Deck Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Danner, and also the founder of Fence and Deck Marketers, a digital marketing agency that works exclusively with fencing and decking companies. Today I have another great episode that I'm really excited about. It's actually a current client of ours and someone that's really just been a lot of fun to work with. And today I have the pleasure of Zach Leamer from Sasquatch Decks and Patios, on the podcast. And Zach is from Southeast Pennsylvania, around the Oxford area, and loves doing outdoor living spaces. And really, when we first onboarded Zach, he had some really cool pictures. One thing that really stuck out to me is one of his projects that he actually created looked like a 3D rendering. And it was pretty wild to see, something that was put together so nicely. And we're going to be talking about that a lot as well, about the whole 3D rendering side and getting into that. So, Zach, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. How's it going, man?
Yeah, buddy. Happy to be here. All's good, man. It's springtime. We're slinging deck boards. What else could I ask for,
Yeah. Peak season right now. So I know there's a lot of everybody's back to work for the most part, I would say. So, like I said, Zach is a client. We're doing his website SEO and some Facebook ads for him. And also, like I said, it has been a lot of fun. He's a cool guy, and I'm excited to kind of tell his story, or let him tell his story today. So
you're too kind, man. I'm just a dude doing dude things.
Well, I guess let's just dive right in. I'd love to know a little bit about the backstory, I guess. Anything that led up to, getting in the deck industry, things, I guess, prior to forming Sasquatch, anything like that would be great.
Yeah. Quick rundown, not to get too into the weeds, but kind of always had aspirations to be like Hemingway lifestyle, do a bunch of things, and that be the end all story. So started doing construction back in high school. It was actually homeschooled, so it kind of afforded a lot of time. We weren't the weird homeschoolers, though. We were like hippie homeschoolers. And so it afforded a lot of time to like kind of chase whatever passion was there. And so kind of the two big passions I had was building things and actually riding horses. So kind of fell into that. Family had nothing to do with it, but I had a desire, so I figured out a way to do it. So did construction, like I said, all through high school, and then kind of graduated high school and was like, hey, I can go two routes. I can either pursue a career with racehorses and competitive riding that way, or go into the construction. And I figured construction will always be there and the horses might not. So I went into that and kind of dedicated quite a bit of my life to that. Pretty much left home 18 and rode up and down the East Coast, kind of like a troubadour as it is, wherever the work was. And like I said, race horses, competitive horses, and kind of did everything involved with that for a solid 10 years, 15 years almost. And put me in the hospital a bunch, definitely like a lot of busted up bones, a lot of injuries that way, and kind of got towards the end of my 20s and was like, this isn't really that much fun, getting hurt all the time because horses will flip on you and they're pretty heavy. So I kind of dove into sales in the horse industry and did that for a couple of years while swinging a hammer on the side, kind of as my zen place, my place to go to get away from everything else. And started just like, I always did cabinetry, so like little, built-ins and such like that, whatever kind of random woodworking project, right? And then people kind of got wind of that, so I started doing it on the side with the sales gig, and stayed in the sales gig probably 2 years longer than I wanted to, but kind of afraid to branch on my own, knowing I was wanting to get back to the construction, because horses was the passion, construction was the passion, never sales, right? But you got to make a living, right? And so I got out of that, and about 5 years ago, kind of like everybody during COVID, was like, let's make a change, and jumped in, literally like no clientele, no nothing, was like, start building stuff. And so promoted that and did a couple decks. It was like, this is where it's at. The decks are a lot of fun. You don't have to be in and out of people's houses. There's a bit of creativity to it. It's usually kind of the last renovation people are doing on their house. So slightly more disposable income at that point. They're a little bit more excited for, you know, if someone wants a roof, they're just calling a roof company because they want a roof because the roof is leaking, right?
Yeah.
They're not, the outdoor space is something that's a bit more leisure. And I don't know, I just felt like it afforded a cool opportunity to jump in on that and then quickly realize that like, oh wait, we can design these in a really cool way and make the space a bit different. I never like doing things the way the neighbors doing them. And so basically did a ton of project at cost so that we could have some pretty cool pictures and kind of promote that. And that's kind of where we're at now. So, I mean, we'll still do your basic deck, but if we can, even the basic ones, add a cool feature that makes it a little bit unique, then that's the goal, right? So
Yeah.
we'll take it, you know, making money right now is we got to pay the bills, but it's not necessarily the end goal. The end goal is to keep developing that portfolio and keep making the projects cool. You know,
Yeah.
I want people to like love being in their backyard. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you do that, they come back to you, they're definitely not going to have the level of creativity that you have, thinking about a project. So, if they're like, yeah, I want a deck, like maybe they just had a new house built, and, seems like all of, at least I think that's across the nation where they build.
Yeah.
Is it in Pennsylvania too? Okay. Where they just have a house built and there's no deck attached.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, so they come to you, they're like, hey, I want a new deck. So they kind of tell you, I want something basic. And then you're like, well, here's what we could do, what you're talking about. And then you add something on it. Like, do you give them additional like options for,
Like a typical rundown, honestly, most of the time it's kind of like two people that are calling, people that have seen one of our cool projects and tell me, hey, I want something like this in my backyard. Or it's people calling saying, I want to get my deck resurfaced, right? Which, I want to bump from a pressure treated deck to a composite,
yeah,
which is affordable, but at the end of the day, the frame of that is not going to support, like, it's not worth putting something that has a minimum of a 25-year warranty on it, right? So that's when like for clients like that, we're tapping into what's the end goal, right? And so if they just need an update, right, then we've got some kind of cookie cutter options that are more or less a fixed price that I can throw an option out to them. I'd say, a decent amount of people will pick up on that, but a lot of times we're able to kind of talk to them more about what it is that they want out of this space and what they're envisioning. And a lot of times it's not a square deck, it's a retreat, it's a place to, you know, extension of their home, right? And that's
yeah,
when we can really dive into, well, how do you want to use this space? What's the budget? Does it, if your budget is this, then we don't have to just put a 500 square foot deck up there. That's a big platform. We could chop it up and do some interesting things and give you some kind of like nooks to be in and kind of look at it as a extension of the home, not just something that's a place to put patio furniture on the back of the house, right? So,
yeah,
yeah. Not really sure
yeah.
if that answered your question at all, but
Yeah, it does. I mean, like you said, like the decks, it's kind of could kind of go either way, I guess, when you kind of look at it. Decks are not really a necessity,
sure.
but they're also what people want. Like
Yeah.
everybody thinks, at least anybody I've ever talked to, wants to have a cool outdoor area, for the most part, I guess. Something like that they can entertain on or, just enjoy with family, that kind of thing. Whereas like plumbing or HVAC, yes, or roofing even, they're more of like a necessity, but people are going to take their time and patch it
Sure.
endlessly if they
Sure.
can. Whereas decks are like, hey, like this is actually what I want to see and what I spend my time on. So,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. I'd say like typically like in the ideal client, and this is kind of the people that we've been attracting more and more and more are they just redid their basement or not their basement, their bathroom. They just redid their kitchen over the last, five, however many years, right? And this is kind of the last cog to the wheel to make their home feel like their home, right? Usually they're
Yeah,
not selling in the next 5 years. It's usually a place where they're going to be at for, the long term and they want it to be theirs, right? So, from the first phone call, it's like, hey, thanks for calling, but yeah, we build decks, but what is it that you're wanting, right? Is it just you and your wife need a place to drink some coffee and, relax in the evening? Or do you got like, 20 people coming over 2 weekends out of the month and need a place to, throw a rager, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? Like, what is it that you're looking out of it? Because everybody's different. So every deck needs to be different, right? I'm not going to build a giant space for someone to entertain when it's, at most 4 people coming over for a weekday, meal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
trying to dive into those needs of each individual client, and that ends up pushing what the design is, right?
Yeah. And I mean, this is one thing too, and I'm always kind of curious about. Yes, like you could talk about kind of their needs and like what they want, how they're hanging out, but there's definitely a significant group of people that are just like, they want stuff not because of need, but because of want. Like they
Sure.
don't. For example, I have a large deck at my house, and like I entertain very, very infrequently. We have two little kids, so it's like them playing on it basically. So
Right.
I'm just curious, like, how do you kind of accommodate that? Like, have you been surprised by that? Like, if you're,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, like, okay, so say you were a client, right? And you're telling me, hey, we have a big deck. I want to redo it, but it's just me, my wife, and my kids, right? It seems like a lot of times people just assume we need to redo the exact footprint, right? So if you have a large space and you want to redo it to have a place to relax and be part of your home, it doesn't need to be the same footprint, right? That footprint could be a much larger budget than we need, right? We could shave down your budget and end up building you a place that's going to actually facilitate you enjoying your yard, right?
yeah,
Like the goal, and when I'm working on a design, is like constantly have to be thinking about how is the client going to be using this, and how can I intertwine everything to promote an experience, right? Like I don't want the deck to just be there and you bring the experience to the deck. I want the deck and the outdoor space, the patio, whatever it is, to magnify what experiences you can be having.
yeah,
So, like, if whatever that ends up being, if it is a quiet nook, if it is a TV wall because you want to be there watching the game with your friends, or what have you,
yeah,
we want that all to make sense and create a flow that actually builds the experience of your use of it. That's kind of a weird way of saying that, but
that makes sense.
yeah. Otherwise, it's just a platform to throw some furniture on, right? And then you have to
Yeah,
kind of figure out, how am I going to use this space for me, right? We want to. I don't want you to have to work on that. I want the space to dictate how you're using it, and that needs to be catered to each individual person.
yeah, yeah. And it's I know you're a creative guy. Like that's just that's your side of it too. I like to think I am, sometimes, but I always
Sure.
just wanted that, when you just see a project there and you're like, oh my gosh, like maybe if it was for your own house or something, you kind of visualize it like, oh my God, it'd be so sweet to have a fire pit here, kitchen
Right.
here,
Right.
whatever, and to like run wild with it. So I'm always curious because I've heard of other um builders kind of doing that, like giving that next like elaborate option, and then they were surprised that people actually chose it pretty often,
Yeah.
like 30%
Yeah.
of the time or something like that. So I always wondered
Yeah.
if you had
And
that like inclination, or just couldn't help yourself and you're like, man, this would be so cool here, even though give
the
people an
best
option.
is the best is when the people are kind of calling, and like this has been happening more and more and more, which I feel is a good thing, is they're they're calling knowing they don't know what can be done, and
Yeah,
calling me to help guide them through what can happen. They know they want a space, but they don't necessarily know how it's supposed to look, or what it's supposed to be, or how it's supposed to feel. And so they're calling me with that open mind to get in there and figure it out for them slash with them. Um, you know, it's one of the reasons that like we try to post as much of the day-to-day stuff that we do on site, so that people can start knowing that that's the strong suit before they're even calling. Like I just the one of the jobs we just started, wrapped up in March, was kind of neat. When I did the site visit, the husband wasn't there. He couldn't be there. It was just the wife. And this was a couple months ago. It took a while to get everything set and finalized to go. So I had met the wife and then never met the husband, and corresponded with him, via phone and emails and everything for probably 4 to 5 months before we actually started. And showed up first day on a Monday, and he comes walking out of the house, and I go to extend my hand, be like, "Hey, it's nice to actually finally meet you. I've not met you in person yet." And he looks at me and goes, "Oh yeah, like I forgot we haven't met because I watch your videos all the time. I feel like I already know who you are, right?" And
Yeah.
that's the goal, right? Like I want to be able to develop that trust ahead of time. And usually if people are calling, they've watched a lot of that, so they know that, oh, this dude doesn't want to just build a square. He wants to make the yard as creative as possible.
Yeah.
So they're kind of coming to me with that already checked off, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I don't know that we have to necessarily like do a lot where I'm giving them one option and then elaborating and here's the other one. Like usually
Yeah.
if we're going to be building a cool backyard for them, we kind of already know that ahead of time. It's
Yeah.
one of the
That
reasons they're
makes sense.
calling. Doesn't mean we land all those jobs, right? Like there's plenty, like I lost out on a design that I was beyond excited about back in February, and would have been a sweet job. Wasn't necessarily the largest budget. It's not like, oh, I'm excited because I'm gonna make money on this job. It just was a real creative one, and woman loved the design and went somewhere else. I mean, it happens, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Definitely can't close them
yeah.
all. Okay. Well, yeah, we were talking earlier before we started recording too about the design side, and that's always intrigued me. And I don't think we've really done. I don't know if we've done any podcast on design, or really haven't touched about too much. So, um, can you talk about like your process there? How you're, what you do, software you use, things like that.
Yeah. So, after the initial site visit of kind of getting to know what it is that they are looking for, we've bounced out around some ideas of like what are their absolutes, like the project has to have this, and what are this would be neat. These would be nice options, right? So once I kind of have that list in my head written down, go right to a sketch pad. I've got a notebook, graph paper, and just sketch out as much as I can. Like whatever's going on in my brain, I try and get it onto paper. We'll play around with that. And then once I've got a somewhat of a layout figured out on paper, then I jump into two different programs, either Real-Time Landscape Architect and SketchUp. I use SketchUp for some of the more intricate details, like when we're building the roof structures and such. Because I also use it for my takeoff, so I can get pretty accurate with that. And then what I make in SketchUp, I can port over into the real-time landscape, which is a 3D rendering. We can do like 3D walkthroughs, we can do screenshots, whatever. And that's where I'll get into the real nitty-gritty of whatever the details are, like the finishes. And then usually they pay for the design, and I spend evenings, weekends, Saturdays, early mornings, and just plug away at it. We could spend anywhere from a small one, we could be on there for 8 hours, or I've spent 16 hours on a design, and start plugging the things in and step back, drink some coffee, go back to it, and just kind of see where the inspiration comes, really.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes it's a bit frustrating because you're like, I just can't get this to, I'm missing something here, missing something here. You get the flash of inspiration in the middle of the night and quick jot it down, and then next morning go ahead and plug it in, and yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I
Okay.
do it.
Yeah. Well, you got. I
Make sure
mean,
some good music's playing on the headphones, and
yeah, you got
yeah.
to have your process.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And clear your mind before you start thinking about it. At least that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
do.
Usually I have a 4-year-old. He'll usually, like, if we're working on a Saturday, he'll be there for like literally he sat with me for 2 hours with like an old laptop that doesn't work, and he'll just start like plugging away like he's doing, his own design. And he'll be like, oh, can we do that color? Can we do that color? I'm like, actually, it's not a bad idea, dude. Like, yeah, why not? Why not? So little bonding experience with the kid.
So he sits down for 2 hours, huh?
He
That's
has, yeah, 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 yeah,
mine's
yeah.
definitely not.
I mean,
Mine's almost
he's
4.
got his toys and he's playing, but
Yeah.
he'll be in and out. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
mine's
he's like ADD as they come. So for him to like sit down next to me
Yeah.
for long is kind of special. Yeah. The only other time I can get him to focus on that is when I give him like a box full of 16 penny nails and a block of wood and just be like, just hammer
Oh
away.
yeah.
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 So
Yeah. Whenever I'm doing something little around the house and have my like, my bag of tools basically,
yeah.
he's always he just always goes for the hammer.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh yeah.
always the
Yeah.
hammer to smash
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
man, just take
Yeah.
the
It was
rubber
funny. It was
mallet.
like early in the year, he's in preschool and they're like, I swear he just like plays with his teachers and he's acting like he doesn't know what a triangle is. And I'm like, he knows what a triangle is. And the teacher's like, hey, like, he's doing really good. He's doing really good. But like, he seems to like not understand what a triangle is. And I'm like, I know he knows what a triangle is, but honestly, he knows the difference between an impact driver and a drill. So like, am I worried about him not knowing a
Yeah.
triangle right now? No, he knows what he's doing. So
That's cool, man. That's cool. He comes out on the job sites too.
yeah,
He
yeah.
probably absolutely loves that.
Yeah, yeah, we've done some jobs that are close with really cool clients, and the wife's brought the kids over and just kind of pop in for lunch and this and that. It's always a nice
Yeah.
reprieve.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. It's a lot. I don't think my son would want to sit around and watch while I work. He sat around. He like wants to play, but I'm like, it's kind
Yeah,
of like that with the laptop. He has like a little fake one. I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
he's like, yeah,
yeah.
this is boring.
But that's just give him the little blower, and he just runs around and
Yeah.
blows the leaves, Yeah, but
That's cute, man. Okay. Well, you mentioned that software, so now I'm intrigued about like how it
sure.
works exactly. So, you can walk through basically. So you create like, say you did a screen in porch, something like that. You walk through there and kind of see what it all looks like too.
Yeah,
That's cool. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So like you can get zoom into pretty specific detail. So I'll do a lot of that. There's in the software, there's a plan view, which will give you like just kind of like quick blueprint. And then you can get into the um basically where you're doing all the renderings and you're toggling around and moving things around. And then and you can click on a like a walkthrough, which basically like kind of puts you almost immersive in the project. Toggle around, zoom into things, walk around. I've done it in the past where we can do a video walkthrough with that. That ends up being really, really time consuming, and I don't think it really benefits. So, like last night, I did a bunch of screenshots of a design for a client coming up, and they wanted to tweak a few things. So after work, drove over there with the laptop and was able to like show them the design, and we can zoom into specific things that they were not worried about, but they were curious about, right? And wanted to see how it would all work together. So it's really nice to be able to have something to present to the client. I think it helps sell jobs. But also by the time we've signed a contract and materials getting delivered, I want to eliminate as many questions as possible, right? So ultimately, my goal is for the final project to look as close to that 3D rendering as possible, right? And so, we might change a color here or there, but I use it as a tool, A, to sell the jobs, but also to make sure we're all on the same page. So there's no surprise. So it's
Yeah.
not coming out and the husband's like, oh yeah, we did this. And the wife says, I thought it was going to look different, right? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to eliminate that.
Hmm.
Construction is tricky enough with enough curveballs. So if there's anything I can do to eliminate a curveball before it gets to me,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. 100%. I mean, if you have just like something, if you gave them the written down piece of paper, like the picture you drew, I mean, there'd be all kinds of interpretation that could be added at the end of it. So I guess,
sure,
I mean,
sure,
I wouldn't probably most of the ones we work with do, but there's still a lot of deck builders, as far as I know, that kind of still do something pretty basic. Definitely not like 3D.
yeah,
A lot of guys that still don't do that. So I feel like
yeah,
anybody that, I mean, especially the bigger projects, if you want to land bigger ones, I feel like
sure,
it's got to be extremely difficult to sell,
sure.
50,000 plus job.
Yep.
Um, if you don't
And I
have
do
3D
charge
rendering.
for the rendering. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
used to, but like we have to at this point.
Yeah.
And so if we are doing a deck where like the one we're on right now is not the most intricate job, right? I'm not I will offer to do a rendering of the project, but like if we're not changing the layout, if we're not doing anything like that, there's no reason for the client to spend the money for a 3D rendering with me when we're basically just replicating what's already there, right?
Yeah. Right.
So it's not something we're doing for every job. I'd say at the moment we're kind of 60-40, 60% being the more design heavy jobs, 40% being, you know, standard, more straightforward decks. And, the decks are expensive as it is, so I got to save the client money where I can. So there's no reason for them to spend money on that design, right? Like,
Yeah.
so
What do you typically charge, or how does the pricing work?
for just a
Design
regular deck
fees.
or for
Well, I mean, like, I guess how you would, I'm not even sure like how you would price it out for the design.
the design, I just do a flat rate, and honestly,
Oh,
it's not
okay.
the most
Okay.
expensive, but it's helps eliminate people that don't really have the budget to start with for that, right? But it also makes people a little bit serious at that point,
Yeah, 100%.
and it's a lot of time that we put into it. I say we, me, and so me and the people in my head. Um,
Yeah.
so as much as I did them for free for almost 2 years, right? And that's a lot of weekends not spent, other than the kid hanging out with me next to it. um I gotta get compensated for it, so that
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. And you lose out on a job. At least I didn't lose out on the time spent with the at the computer. So
Yeah. What is it typically charged? Like a $500, 1,000? I'm not even really
yeah,
sure.
it's 500 for the
Okay.
design, so yeah,
Gotcha.
nothing to break the bank, but enough to like pay for the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think everybody should be doing that. I mean, anybody that I don't know of anybody that's not charging personally, but I'm sure there's quite a few. But I mean, like you said, it's your time you're putting aside for it. So,
Yep.
um, so either way, but okay. And then just overall, I think I know the answer to this question, but like if you had to pick your ideal project, like what you want to go after the most, I mean, types of outdoor living projects. I mean, what would you really want to see, or like the types you would really want to work on?
The jobs that are the most fun are the ones that are incorporating a lot of different aspects, right? So, a job we did last summer, ended up being a really, really fun project, amazing clients. The, you know, husband and wife, the, wife was definitely wanting more of a place to kind of have like a quiet reading nook. Whereas the husband wanted a bit more of an option for entertaining, right? But they wanted all to be the same. So we ended up doing a pretty large covered portion. I think it was like 24 by 18. And then that kind of cascaded down to a very large patio where there was a fire pit and built-in kitchen and everything. But to break it up in between, we threw some benches, built-in benches in there. That was kind of underneath the pergola as well. So it had a lot of layers to it and a lot of different things going on where the husband got his space and the wife got her space, but it all made sense together, right? So when we can kind of do multiple different functions of the deck all in one and they flow nicely together, those are the projects that get me the most excited because you have to get a bit creative as to, well, how do we utilize the space and get everybody what it is that they want out of this project, and hopefully a bit more. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Was
yeah,
that the one that looked like the rendering?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I
yeah,
could
yep,
picture it in my head. Yeah, that was a really cool
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. How long did that take to build?
Uh, longer than we expected.
It's a big
As
project.
all jobs. I think we were on that for a total of 6 weeks, I want to say.
Oh,
Six
okay.
weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I
yeah.
say 6 months. I was like, okay.
No, no, no. We were on that for 6 weeks and maybe some change.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's not bad for how big that. I mean, it's a
Yeah. Tough
elaborate
thing with,
project.
I mean, that's the other problem though, too, with the bigger jobs, like, is sure, the budget is bigger, but that doesn't necessarily mean your take home is any bigger because the bigger the job, the more things that can go wrong with it, the more delays that happen, the more, things you can't count on. And, uh, I try to keep my margins pretty darn tight. So one thing goes wrong and that's a lot of the budget that's kind of gone. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah, absolutely. And then I want to touch on the photo side of it because I'm always talking about that too. It's you're already good about it, so I didn't have to have that sit down talk with you about it. But a lot of times I do, with clients. But I mean, can you talk about that, like your process? how you handle that, take such good photographs.
The photographs, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was doing it on just from my phone for a while. We still do a lot of that during the job. But when the jobs are done, we've got a person local I met. She actually did all the logos on our shirts, which is how I met her. And then we ended up doing her parents' deck, which was a really awesome project. But she does professional photography, and so she's got a drone and all the kind of cool things that photographers should have to make really
Yeah.
cool pictures. So we'll schedule her coming out. Sometimes she comes out during the job, but usually kind of towards the end once everything's cleaned up and back to where it needs to be. A lot of times we'll wait for a little bit of the grass to come in so it looks a little bit fresher.
That's smart.
And
Yeah.
then she'll spend some time putting all that together, and yeah.
There's some good little details there. I feel like,
Yeah.
well, the grass is definitely one I've never heard. That's a good idea though. That's probably why it
Can't
looked like.
always wait, but sometimes, yeah.
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 What
So
about like the furniture? Do you say like, oh, put your furniture on there, get it ready, and then you'll take
so
pictures?
that's something I definitely want to start doing is we recently got a new work trailer, and so I want to retire the old trailer to be able to have some furniture in it constantly that I can stage jobs
That's
with.
a good idea. Yeah.
Just
Like
so it
that.
can roll in, roll out. That should hopefully be on the docket here in the next month or so. But for the most part, I haven't really been staging it. A lot of times at that point, like because we wait a little bit of time, usually the clients have gone ahead and put all their furniture back
Yeah.
out or bought what they are getting. So a lot of the photos that are staged, that's actually just the client's furniture. So
Yeah.
yep.
I was just thinking that
Yep.
popped in my head. I was like, what if you built this really nice project, but they put like this really ugly furniture on?
That is always a fear. Hence wanting to load the trailer up with some
Yeah.
furniture that can just go. So yeah,
A
but
good safe way to make sure you always get what you need.
exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's no shortage of craziness, I guess, that you can never expect.
Yeah. They're like the Lowe's picnic table sitting on top of a
Yeah.
$70,000 job.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and then she also has the drones. Yeah, you gotta have the drones for decks. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't see any
Yeah.
sense not to have
Which
it.
is also like a lot of times while I'm doing the design, there's kind of always in the back of my mind of what's this going to look like from the air.
Yeah,
And that's so when you can get the picture to actually look like what you thought it was going to look like is always
yeah,
validating. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Is there anything, what we were talking about or anything else that you've noticed like that you guys do a little bit differently that seem to help, that might help some other people that are listening to the podcast? That was maybe a
Um,
difference maker or anything like that.
I I don't know if it's different. Maybe different for some companies. I mean, we're a small company. It's me and two guys. And now that does mean that, like talking to you, I'm on a job site, over lunch, right? So it's hard to steal away from the job. But when the clients are investing that kind of money with us, w- I'm on site all the time. And so when they're dealing with me as the salesperson, me as the designer, and me as the lead carpenter, right? So there's definitely times when we're on a job and we're like, hey, I didn't realize that the sun baked on your deck this bad all afternoon. So can
Yeah,
we change something around to make it, a little bit more comfortable for you in the long run? It'll be a change order that'll cost this. Is that something you want to do? We're ahead on some material so we can pull from that. And so there's an open dialogue with the clients constantly, to make sure that if we need to pivot in any way that we can do it quickly, right?
yeah,
I think that's a lot of small crews can do that. I think that's what's different than some of the larger deck builders in my area are very large. And so you're talking to a lot of different people before someone shows up to swing a hammer.
yeah,
I think a lot of things can get lost at that point, and not to take anything away from the person swinging the hammer, but they're following the blueprints that are given to them, right? Whereas we could be a bit more fluid and kind of do an about face when we need to, and make sure that if there's alterations that need done, then we can just get after it. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's a good point about the sun. I notice it on mine all the time. Like we have
yeah,
we bought the house. It's got a pergola on it, which is like just an
Yeah.
old standard wood pergola. It's like the most
Yeah.
worthless thing ever created, I think.
Yeah.
But
Or there's times too where like, I'm kind of trying to constantly watch how the people are almost said watch the people in their homes, not in a creepy way, but no, watch how people are using their property, right? And I might have, when I did the initial site visit and took the photographs, thought that, hey, this is the exterior door that they use the most, right? But
yeah,
as we're there, realizing, oh, they let their dogs out from the other side of the house. So maybe we need to pivot something to make it more usable in that way, right? So there's always this
yeah,
constant figuring out how are they living in the space and how can I make any adjustments that are going to um elevate that for them opposed to be a wrench down the road. So
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Okay. And we're getting towards the end here. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything, nuggets of wisdom, anything like that?
uh just keep your pencils sharp. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. You
Literally,
wonder why all
or is
your
that
cuts are an
a
eighth off. Sharpen your pencil. Um nah man, just have fun with it. Like at the end of the day, we're not saving the world. We're just building spaces and have
yeah,
fun. Like, I don't
yeah,
know. I definitely feel like, I have aspirations for where I want the company to be and, on a financial side, but like it's easy to get bogged down and worry about that constantly.
yeah,
And it's not worth worrying about. Like you gotta be aware of it. But at the end of the day, if you're having fun, then people are gonna see that and people are gonna want to jump on board. So,
yeah.
and hopefully the money will come after.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you
I'll
gotta,
let you
I
know.
would, I would guess, good company culture, it seems like too. So, if you're if you're not having fun on the job or the guys aren't enjoying themselves too, then it's going to be turnover and, other
Yeah.
problems too. So,
Yeah. No. And like, yeah, you just gotta, we gotta swing our hammer either way. So might as well build cool stuff while we're doing it and have fun. So yeah.
yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, Zach, I appreciate you coming on the
Yeah, dude.
podcast and answering all this.
Yeah,
I know
man.
everyone listening here, got a lot of value from this, and I hope everyone enjoyed, listening here Zach's story and all the crazy horse racing stuff, which I didn't know about. And by the way, you did the onboarding call. I think one of the questions is like, tell me. I feel like that one should have been uncovered at one point.
Probably,
Maybe you didn't.
probably,
I forgot.
probably. I don't let on, like, yeah, yeah, which is also like kind of funny because like I'm small enough to have ridden racehorses, but it's Sasquatch Renovations is the company or
Yeah.
Decks and Patios, which is always fun whenever I step out of the truck for a site visit. They're like, "You're not what I was expecting."
So were you a
So
jockey or what? Like, were you actually
I was
doing
an
the
exercise
racing?
jockey, so we prepped them for the races.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, but I'm 5 foot nothing and 130 pounds soaking wet. So like
That's pretty wild, man. That's got to be pretty crazy to.
yeah.
Did you ever go to Kentucky at all, by the way?
To watch the Derby
Or
or
just
just
I heard that was
yeah,
like the
I've been
mecca
to
of horse
Kentucky.
racing or something.
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
been to
know.
Kentucky a bunch. Keeneland is a big racetrack down there, not far from Churchill. But like we would go pretty much anywhere south of New York. I've probably ridden a horse
Oh,
there.
cool.
Like,
Nice.
and yeah, yeah.
That's
So
cool.
that was like I said, that was everything at that point. It's kind of all consuming. So yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks again, man.
yeah, dude.
And going forward with the Fence and Deck Mastery podcast, I'm gonna keep doing these. I'm actually a little bit behind as of the time of recording this. It's been a little bit crazy, but gonna keep this up and get back to our weekly podcast grind. If you got any value from this, or if you enjoyed, listening to us talk here, love it if you could review, subscribe to the podcast. It helps us out a lot. Right now, we're getting into well, we're already in the busy season, in the deck season, fence season, contractor season. So if you have any questions about marketing, feel free to reach out. The website's deckfencemarketers.com, and you can follow us all through our social media platforms as well. So, yep, Zach, again, thanks for coming on here, man. And
Yeah, dude.
yeah, have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, you too, man.